I'm here with Tim Schmalz, the sculptor. He's been creating beautiful artwork for more than 20 years, pretty much all his life. And this is his latest piece of St. Patrick. Tell us about this piece, Tim.
This is actually a model for what hopefully will be the largest sculpture of St. Patrick in the world. At 100, this is I think it's around 3 feet, but my intention is to create it 100 feet and to have it placed on Croagh Patrick Mountain in Ireland. So it's going to be my largest piece to date, and it'll be awesome. And so basically from a distance you see it's a Celtic cross, and that is one of the most iconic symbols of Ireland. Everywhere you go in Ireland you see the Celtic cross. Everyone has a little jewelry of the cross. This basically is the backdrop for the St. Patrick sculpture. And as you can see at the top here, what you have is another very, very obvious symbol of Ireland, and that's a shamrock. Well, the shamrock was, basic legend had it that St. Patrick used the shamrock to teach the Trinity to people. So you have each of these petals come out to show a symbol of the Trinity, and so I'm using the very traditional symbols: the hand, which represents the Father; the fish, which represents Jesus; the dove, which represents the Holy Spirit. So St. Patrick spent his life teaching people with the shamrock about the Trinity, and now my sculpture at a huge size will do the same. It will teach people about the Trinity. And you can see here the style is very Celtic. Actually, I took the fish and the bird from the Book of Kells. The style of the Celtic artwork is kind of worked within my piece throughout my whole piece. But so if you notice the cross, but then you see the sculpture of St. Patrick himself. And what I wanted to do with St. Patrick is create a serious saint, a saint that has power, has strength, and who has distinct character. A lot of the traditional representations of St. Patrick, quite frankly, could be confused with St. Bartholomew, St. Peter. This is distinctly St. Patrick, and as you can see here by his Celtic garb here, very rough, and again his face is very intense. I have the bishop's mitre, which St. Patrick probably wouldn't have worn, but just so people identify him as a bishop. And as you come down to the piece here, you notice again I'm using the traditions of how St. Patrick was represented throughout history. Usually in a lot of artwork he was represented stepping on serpents, and actually his staff is going into the head of one of the serpents. And the symbol of that is that, not necessarily that he scared all of the snakes away from Ireland, but more that he was triumphant about replacing Christianity instead of having the pagan religion. So here you have the symbols of the pagans, the Druids, and then triumphant over that culture and that religion. Here is St. Patrick. So it's kind of like a totem pole, and it can be kind of read like that. You have the pre-Christian civilization, you have the saint, and you have what the saint taught to people. And at the back of the piece you have the serpents, which are very Celtic in their design. They are actually taken from the Book of Kells, the design of them. And you have their tails kind of weaving this beautiful Celtic knot, which leads the eye, leads the viewer to look up at, can you see that?
Oh, no.
It leads them up to the Tree of Life. And the reason
That's gorgeous.
Thank you. The reason why I chose the Tree of Life is because it's a symbol that both the Christians and the pagans shared. And so I thought it would be appropriate to have it, because I do not want to minimalize the pre-Christian religion, the pagan religion. I just want to enhance it as many ways as I can within this work. And so you can see here within this cross is the Tree of Life, which is, like I mentioned before, also a Christian symbol. So the piece really gives respect to the pre-Christian religions, the heritage of Ireland, and it also is a very powerful representation of St. Patrick. And so this is only a model. This is a 3-foot model.
You talk about this large one you want to do on the top of Croagh Patrick, the mountain. Now, when you say large scale, what are we talking about here?
We're talking about one of the largest sculptures in the world. My foundry right now is in my studio. My large studio is in Beijing. Every single day I'm in Beijing, I see these massive monuments celebrating Buddha. They do them 50 feet, 25 feet, 75 feet easily. And it was when I was working on St. Bridget, that's going to Kildare, Ireland. And during the time I was working on that, I witnessed them pulling off a 50-foot bronze Buddha. And I thought, well, why can't we, over in the West, continue to do great, large sculptures? It seems like something very exciting, and it seems like something that the West doesn't really do anymore. And when you're over in the East, it's something that's very common. So my idea is to actually create a huge landmark, a world attraction in the West that celebrates our Western culture, our specific Irish culture, but predominantly our Western heritage here. So it's very exciting. This is only a model. I'll have to do a 6-foot model, and I'll do a lot of different things. But this is the first time I've actually got a 3-dimensional version of what I intended. I actually did, initially what I'll do is a sketch. Here's a sketch here. Can you see them?
Mm-hmm.
And basically you have the general outline of what the piece is, and then I'll use this as kind of just a general idea to work on this piece. And then from this is pretty much more a scale model, but then I'll have to, as I do a 6-foot model, it'll become more detailed and I'll get more expression in it. But this is the starting point of the project.
Now, you talk about this piece over in Ireland. I can imagine a sculpture of this scale is going to cost quite a bit of money. Who is it that you hope to have pay for this monument?
Well, the interesting idea is I want every, like the sculpture is very symbolic. I want to have all aspects of the creation of it symbolic. So what I'm looking for is to have American patrons, just like the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty was a gift from the country of France, private people from France to America. And what I want this huge sculpture to be is a gift from America. How much the Irish have affected America. Actually, there's more Irish descendants in Boston than there is in Ireland now. And I thought that it'd be amazing to have these descendants from this new world actually help promote the culture in Ireland where they came from. So what I'd love to do is have all of America actually support this project, so when they go and see it over in Ireland, they feel that they really had a part of it and that they were involved in creating it. So when they actually go visit Croagh Patrick and they see one of the largest sculptures in the world, they can say, yeah, I helped build that, right? So I'm looking for private donations, I'm looking for Irish societies, and anyone that really loves the Irish culture to help jump on board and actually make this a reality here.
Would you possibly consider making a smaller version of it, something for the regular American that they could have in their home?
Yes, I am going to be making most of my sculptures that I do, actually even the St. Bridget sculpture that I just did, I'll be making small reproductions of it. Around, I think this one is going to be a 12-inch piece, which people can purchase, and part of the proceeds go to building the huge monument. And that's what I really like, is the idea that as many Americans as possible can actually help build this piece here and become a part of history.
I understand there's been quite a bit of publicity about this this idea you've got over in on the Emerald Isle. It's been quite the story, and there's a bit of controversy about whether something like this should be created on the top of Croagh Patrick.
It's interesting because I'm right now obviously at the beginning stages of this with the 3-foot model, working on figuring out, talking to the foundry about how we'll construct this image 100 feet. And the word got out to Ireland. I think it was the Irish Central, an American Irish newspaper. I mentioned to them trying to get support from the Americans, and then the people in Ireland found out about it, and it just went crazy with people calling in. Some of the people were very, very excited about it. A lot of the people were saying that we do not want this all this Christianity over here, which is just phenomenal when I heard about this, because I thought, well, St. Patrick is more than just a Christian symbol. And so right now in Ireland, what they're doing is they're doing several polls to see if that's just the radical hate mail on emails, or if the Irish people really nowadays in contemporary times really identify with this St. Patrick and all what he brought.
Have you ever been to Croagh Patrick?
That's the reason for this piece. Around I think it was 7 years ago, I did some of the, I did actually kind of a sculpture garden at Our Lady of Knock Shrine. It's the biggest shrine in Ireland.
County Mayo.
County Mayo. And a priest friend of mine brought me over to Westport, and I climbed halfway up Croagh Patrick. I looked around and I just thought this is one of the most beautiful places in the world. It is absolutely amazing. And it was me, my priest friend, and sheep. And I could not believe that more people didn't know about this. And I travel quite a bit of different places with my sculpture all over the world, and a lot of times I mention Westport, I mention Croagh Patrick, and no one seems to have heard of the place. And I was thinking that, my God, this is one of the beautiful places, this is one of the gems of Ireland. And I hear so much sad news about how the Irish now are leaving, they're trying to find jobs, the economy is really hurting them. And I thought, if we create one of the largest sculptures in the world and put it here on the mountain, that would give a great excuse for so many Americans and so many tourists all over the world to come to this county and see the beauty that Ireland has to offer. And so it's interesting, because I think that once this piece is put on that mountain, I think that it will become a world attraction. And right now I'm in the process of doing research about what other huge monuments around the world have generated as far as revenue. And so, like Mount Rushmore, for instance, which is a colossal statue in the United States, you have millions, I forget the number, something like 10 million visitors going to this basic place in the middle of nowhere just to see these huge heads carved out of a mountain. And what I'm thinking of is that if this piece gets over to Ireland, not only would it be basically celebrating Irish culture, Irish heritage to the world, but it will also bring the world over to Westport to see that beauty. And it's interesting because I think so you have the idea that it's going to help the economy of Ireland, it's going to create an attraction, a world attraction, but it's also going to basically reinforce and celebrate our Western culture. And it's like one of my favorite quotes from Oscar Wilde is, I think it's in his essay The Decay of Line, where he mentions that the people in London never realized that there was fog till the artist started painting it, till the painter started representing it in art. Then all of a sudden everyone realized London was filled with fog. And I think the same thing is with a sculpture like this. Once this piece is 100 feet, people will have more tangibility or more feel for their own Irish culture and basically what it has done for the world. It's interesting because this coming St. Patrick's Day, I'm hearing about all the news in Ireland about the piece. You have one of the tourist ministers talking about agreeing with me that it would be a great boost for the economy in Ireland. But then this St. Patrick's Day, what other places in the world are doing, like the Eiffel Tower, they're flooding it with green lights. The Rio de Janeiro Jesus, they're flooding with green lights.
For one day.
For St. Patrick's Day. And the reason why they're doing that is because big things get attention. Big things make people think. And
I think what you're saying is true too. I think that the Statue of Liberty, the weeks prior to its erection, and even maybe the first few years after it was installed, it may not have meant a whole lot to Americans, but try to take it away from them today. What does it mean to Americans today?
Exactly. And so I think that when this piece gets over, it will become an absolute landmark, and it will become a treasure to Ireland. But the question I have right now is St. Patrick, is the shamrock still something that the general Irish people identify with? Like, I emailed one person that criticized this as being too religious and very spiteful about the idea, is that I do not mean to offend anyone by creating this. It's a goodwill gesture. It's a celebration of Irish culture. The last thing I want to do is piss the Irish people off. I don't necessarily want protests coming up because it's a Christian symbol. But the interesting thing is, if you look at Ireland and how much the Christian culture did for Ireland, it's hard to pull that out of history and still have an Ireland that resembles anything of what Ireland is today. And it's like if you look at the pre-Christian religions there, they believed in human sacrifice. They believed in violence, and that's what they celebrated. And when St. Patrick came over, and when the Christians came over to Ireland, what they did was they taught peace, and the religion of Christianity is one of peace and love. And so basically, I feel that it is so intertwined with the Christian images are so intertwined with the Irish culture that it's just a no-brainer that this, if you want any emblem of Ireland, it has to be St. Patrick, it has to be a shamrock. Either that or a little elf or something like that, but who wants to see a huge elf? So, though I'm sensitive about that, about the criticism about the Christianity within the piece, there's also a lot of nods to pre-Christian religion here. As you can see, the Tree of Life is something that both the pagans as well as the Christians share as part of their religion. So it's not like Christianity is completely against the ideas of some of the ideas of nature, what the pagans had, but
so what you're saying, it really tells the story of Ireland. It's not about a Christian saint. And I'm not saying that. I'm sure in Ireland today there must be a great deal of Christians. I remember an Irish fellow once telling me a joke, and I remember the punchline was, well, if you're not Protestant or Catholic, you're just confused.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think that this is a perfect symbol for Ireland, and it's how people perceive Ireland too. It's, if you look at it's St. Patrick's Day. It's not Guinness Day, or it's not yet Guinness Day, right?
Yeah.
And so the idea is that this is to represent a whole culture. St. Patrick represents more than 500 years of a religion that formed not only Ireland but also helped develop the rest of the civilized West. So I think it's very appropriate. And I think it's a beautiful sculpture too. And it's like, I think that some of the criticism about the piece in Ireland right now is because they haven't seen this. And when you're talking...
What have they seen to this point?
Well, initially, when a lot of the criticism came on, I know they haven't seen anything. They actually saw some of my samples of my other pieces.
So really, to this point, it's just the idea of a large image of Patrick.
Yeah, and I think that what a lot of people are afraid of is that, oh, it's going to be like a 100-foot Godzilla. Like, and that's a problem that I find with a lot of people that do huge monuments. Once they say it's 100 feet, it has to be boring. It has to be ugly. It has to be simple. But this is anything but a large Godzilla. It's an art piece that actually works this big, and it would work smaller, because I'm going to be doing a 12-inch version of it. Any sculpture that works at any size, I think, is a good design. And this one can work at 100 feet. It will work at 6 feet. It'll even work as a tattoo on your back, I think. So I think it's a great design, and I think that a lot of people are turned off by the idea of a large sculpture, simply because a lot of the big sculptures out there are either boring or gaudy or too simple. And this is not a simple message. This takes, this kind of weaves the ideas of the Celtic culture, as well as the Christian culture. It tells a story. Well, one of the things I love is that St. Patrick used the shamrock to explain the Trinity to people. Now, most people that have shamrocks, they're Irish, they have a shamrock tattoo, they have a shamrock on their hat, they have no clue on the origins of how that shamrock, how it became so popular. And I think that as the world becomes more globalized, as you have all of these other cultures that seem like the East, like Asia, so far away, I think that now we need to, as Europeans, we need to have a stronger voice and a louder voice for our culture. And we have to be proud of our heritage, proud of our history. Something like a 100-foot sculpture certainly does that. and it certainly does make a statement. And I'm not only thinking that Americans who support this piece are going to flock over to County Mail, to this mountain, but I think people from around the world will hear about it. At 100 feet, it will. If I did it 10 feet, 15 feet, no one will hear about it. And that's part of the excitement about doing a big piece, is because it's a big message. And I think it's a message that warrants to be told.
Well, Tim, it certainly is a majestic masterpiece in my opinion, and I hope your vision is realized. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks.